Unfortunately, this IKEA table didn't fit in the art room, so I've moved it down to the garage. But to make it easier to use, I want to put a drawer in here. So, time to make a box. I've started by rough cutting some timber by hand, so it's pretty rough, and as you can see, it's a bit too thick. So let's plane it to size, cut some dovetails, and then make a box from there. So I did do a good job to cut this in two by hand, but if you look closely, it is still pretty rough. I really need to smooth it out. And also, if you look closely at the end, you can see it's a little bit too thick. It's not even. So let's get this smoothed out. To this rough stuff, I'll use a scrub plane. It has a slightly curved blade. Makes it easier to get all this stuff off pretty quickly. It looks like when I did my sawing, ripping the boards in half, didn't really do quite a good job here, and I went too thin. So planing it to thickness isn't taking this out, so I'm going to have to try to hide it with the scraper. I mean, it doesn't really matter because this is just for the workshop, but might as well just do things properly, right? So scraper is just essentially a piece of metal with a sharpish edge, and it works pretty much like a plane. I think that's going to have to do. So it's time to do the same exercise for this board. So let's get on to it. So all four boards are done. Time to cut some dovetail joints and get this box really happening. If I've done all my measurements right, I should be good to go. And I've done it specifically so that I miss some of the screw holes and nail holes. I'm not an expert at cutting dovetails, so I'm going to use this cheater's jig, I guess. Magnetic, just guides the saw to where you want it. First time using this jig, by the way. So that looks pretty good, and then I'll come back and we'll measure out the pins. The critical part to getting dovetails to fit nice and tight, is the measuring. So to make it as accurate as possible, I use the original cuts, offset by the saw kerf to make marks for the pins. Okay, given that I'm using the guide, it should be all okay. Here I'm using the back of the saw to position the blade in those cuts I made earlier, which allows me to lock the guide in the exact spot for the cut. With the majority removed by the saw, time to clean it up now with the chisel. Just using a small chisel and going halfway and creeping up to the line, you clean out these joints. If I'm honest, the fit isn't marvellous, but hey, I can only get better from here. So let's continue and see how I go with the others. It's definitely getting better. Oh, 2 more joints to cut. Maybe I can make them perfect.
Waiting to be back, I give a deep sigh. All around, in the mirror, rising smiles that take part in my endless tale.
This is the box coming together. Unfortunately, instead of making perfect joints at the back, I made a mistake and I've made them all too loose. So I'm going to get some scrap wood and shim them up. So that's what I'm going to do next. I finished tightening the rear joints with some shims. It's all square enough. I've got myself some plywood. I'll go ahead, measure that up to size and stick it on. I'm just going to simply glue it. I'm not going to do a dado and set it inside. That's just not worth it, and these boards are really thin anyway. So let's get onto it. Board's been marked up with all the measurements, so time to cut it to size. I'll grab the circular saw, set it up, and let's go. So let's glue these joints up. Okay, that should be it. I'll leave it to dry. Once that's done, I'll glue the bottom on. I've given it half an hour or so. So the glue's probably slightly set up. At least enough for me to get onto the next stage, which is gluing the back. Fortunately, none of the nails went through. Alright, I'll finish cleaning up, and I think that's it. Now that the box is complete, it's time to take some of these sharp edges off. Okay, let's start filling this thing up. Looks good. With this setup, I should have access to all my carving tools and bits and pieces, while keeping my bench much freer and giving me a chance to actually get through some of this timber I need to carve up into spoons and bowls and sculptures, I guess. Who knows? Thanks for watching.